Welcome to Book Huddle. I'm your host, Karen Reader with Readgab. Today, our guest is Carolyn Mackler. She is the author of Right Back at You. I read this year, and it is one of those books that are just like, yes! I immediately wanted to reach out and talk to her. But before we get going, I just want, Carolyn, can you take a second and tell us a little bit about yourself in addition to being an author?
Sure. Well, first of all, Karen, thank you so much for having me. I love your shirt, Frog and Toad. I love all the books in the background, and I'm just so excited to have this time to hang out. So thank you. And well, obviously, I'm a writer, so I love to read, and I just always have a novel on my nightstand. Reading is a huge part of my life. Okay, so I'm married and I have two sons, so love all my family time. And we have a doodle named Maple, a golden doodle, and we are obsessed with her. So I would say our family conversation generally revolves around Maple. And it's like, oh my gosh, look what she's doing. Look how she's lying. Doesn't she look like a chicken nugget? Isn't she adorable? Look at her face. So, and we kind of have a rule in our family that whenever anyone says, you've got to see Maple, like right now, you have to just put down what you're doing, go in the other room and see what adorable thing Maple's doing. So, yeah, I would say that if I had to rank like things in my life, Maple's definitely high up there, along with
That is so fun to
family.
hear about. I have my dog actually over here squeaking right now. I brought her down thinking she was going to behave. I have a golden retriever that, yeah, we're
Oh,
just
Maple's friends and relations from, oh gosh, Winnie the Pooh. Whenever we see a golden doodle, we're always like, your friends and relations, like rabbit.
cute.
Yes.
Oh, that's so fun. All right. We are going to do an author icebreaker now. So I pick a children's book and we're going to ask you a question based on that. So it's going to be Matilda. And Bruce, he is forced by the Trunchbull to eat all of the chocolate cake. And I was just laying there last night thinking about what would I eat? What would not be hard for me if I just had to sit there and eat and eat and eat? What would it be for
Right.
you, Carolyn? If
Like
you,
what would be the best punishment ever,
right,
basically?
right. What would
Yes,
be, I love a phrase
exactly.
like that. You're good with
I
that.
would definitely say popcorn. I love popcorn. I can't walk past like a movie theater where they pump the popcorn in the air
Yes.
without thinking like, I want popcorn. And also I want to see a movie, but I definitely want popcorn. I love buttered popcorn. I love caramel popcorn, kettle corn, cheese popcorn. I am just a big, big popcorn fan.
Popcorn in all its glory. All right,
Yes.
that because I was going to ask if there are flavors. Oh, what book am I reading? Is it?
And interestingly, Karen, I think that popcorn is very often paired with narratives. Like we watch a movie and eat popcorn. I could read a book and eat popcorn. So it's
Right,
like a double pleasure, right? And if I have
right.
Maple, and Maple, our golden doodle, loves popcorn. So I can
Does
bring
she?
the three things. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. For her birthday last year, we put the air popper out and
Uh-huh.
we just like didn't put a bowl out and just popped it for her
And
just
just
into
let her
the
go
room.
to town.
She just ran around collecting pieces.
That is so fun. I take joy in that. That just sounds like something that should be in
Total
a
joy,
book too.
sensorial pleasure.
Yes. Oh, I have never thought of giving Ember some popcorn. Would you like some popcorn? Well, maybe we'll go try that later. There's a book
Yeah,
I'm
thank you.
reading that the character to decompress. I think it's my best friend bracelet. She does different flavors when she goes to she needs a break. She goes to eat some popcorn. Let's do an elevator pitch of Right Back at You. For those listeners who have not heard of this incredible book, tell us a little bit about it.
Absolutely. And I will try to hold it up. We're in like this blurred background. So you have to, there you go.
Nice.
Okay, there it is. A beautiful cover. Can you see it? It
Yes,
goes in and out.
I know it does as
It's
you
almost like
move.
a
It's on right
phantom
now.
cover. Yeah. Okay, so I'll put it down. So Right Back at You is my latest novel. It is a middle grade novel about two seventh graders. One is in 2023, a boy, and one lives in 1987. She's a girl. And they find a way to write letters back and forth to each other. There's a portal in their closet. And they don't live in the same home. They live 300 miles apart. They're separated by 36 years. And so after they overcome the disbelief of like, how could we possibly do it when they
And
really
the
realize
annoyance. How are you even doing this?
are you in my closet? They form an unlikely friendship and they realize that they are both being bullied. The boy, contemporary boy, is being bullied at school by one kid who just won't leave him alone and picks on him about his sweatpants and the fact that his dad left. And the girl, Talia, is being bullied because she's Jewish. And they find support in this unlikely friendship and they help each other through some really tough times. And they just sort of talk about how things are very different And yet, even though they're separated by so many years, that a lot of things still are the same, which is like the desire to fit in,
Yes.
the desire to be safe from bullying, the desire to have a friend who says, like, I see you and I hear you and you're not alone. And then towards the end of the book, we find out why, and I won't give that away, but we find out why the two of them have found a way to communicate with each other.
Yeah, it's so I have to keep myself actually from asking this question because it does spoil it. But I love the power of the emotion. I think that's one thing that really drove the book for me is it made it so emotional that it's written in letter and it made me feel like I was there with them and it felt like they were connecting on a higher level because of the letter writing. I think that it made the book more of a connection for the two main characters, but also for the reader. And I think that was so powerful that I'm like, I want to read more books where there are letters or more brilliant books by Carolyn because there is just so
Hopefully
much
both.
emotion there. So sign me up right there. So
Um,
tell me though about this of creating this where you're going through very two different points of view because
Right.
they're
So
very
I've
different characters.
always wanted to write an epistolary novel. I think I'm such a snoop. I think most novelists are. And I love the idea of being able to read someone else's correspondence. What
Right?
did they say? How does the correspondence evolve? How are writing a letter is just this moment where you really think like, how am I feeling right now? And what do I want to convey to this person? And so it felt like just the perfect way to tell this story because I wanted to have them reach across all these years and connect without having their body physically move. And so that's kind of what you do with a letter is you connect with someone without while still staying in the same place. And so it was to write two very different voices. I took a lot of notes on who they were. Like, who is Talia? How does she write? What is her style of speech? What is Mason's style of speech? What are things that are important to him? And so I really worked hard to get both of their voices down. Um, and like I do with all characters, what is their personality and how do they convey that through their language? And then, but the fun thing was because they're separated by so many years, I really also got to think a lot about what life was like in 1987. And how does Talia get baseball scores? She loves baseball. And how does she get clothes? Does she have to go to the mall? And how does she listen to music? She borrows her brother's Walkman. And how did they find out, her mom, she thinks that the way you find out weather is you call this number, time, and temperature. You
Right.
don't look it up on your phone. And then I thought about Mason and how does he explain to Talia what Amazon is? That you
Right.
order anything through your phone and you order food by just touching your phone. And
And the Google.
how do you explain that you like Talia says like you have to go to the library to find a recipe and he just says I just look it up on Google.
Right.
Or you can look up anyone and usually find something about people. So it was also this moment where they didn't just live in a certain time, but they had to explain it to the other one. Or
Yes.
sometimes just say, it's hard to explain, just believe me. Things
Just
are very
believe,
different.
yes. Yes, I like that. And my kids will often ask me, "Did you have da da da?" And sometimes it's funny that I was like, "Well, of course I did." I'm trying to think of one. I can't think right now of something that I was like, "Of course I watched cartoons or something as a child in the
Right,
80s." But then things that they do ask, I'm like, "Well, no, that didn't exist. I
right,
was alive when the internet came into being." And so
right,
different things. And I love that it's two kids in middle school explaining it to each
right.
other instead of me as an adult explaining it to my child. I really love that it's two kids in middle school trying to help each other understand.
Understand. And I think the funniest thing is that how at first Talia is so skeptical, like Google, and then at some point she's like, "Can you Google this for me?"
Yes,
She wants in on that too, which is the
right?
ability to look up anything at any time.
Yeah, get me in. Get me
Exactly.
get me a Google.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love the commonality too, that even through this huge difference of time, there's commonality that we can find.
Right.
And I think it helps kids see that there's commonality that you don't have to be separated by time, that there are more things in common with each other than you think. Like the boy, sorry, oh, Mason. Mason?
Mason, yeah.
Okay, so
Mason,
Mason, he eventually starts making a connection in real time as well with somebody, and he's surprised to find commonality with this person that he thought that he had nothing in common
right.
with.
Caleb, yes.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a powerful thing for adults and children to say, wow, there's more commonality out there than I realized. There's more that we can find to share than what we realize separates us.
Pointing that out. And when you say that, I think of two things. One thing I think is how important it is, like right now, at this time and place in our world, to understand that despite differences, we have more in common than we have different. And for, as you said, for both adults and kids to realize that and to really sort of look at kind of reaching across difference and building bridges. So I think that is so important. And if Right Back at You can be part of that conversation, I'm thrilled. The other thing I think about commonality is that the experience of being bullied is an incredibly lonely experience and unfortunately feels really shameful. And I was bullied in seventh grade, similar to Talia. I was bullied because my dad is Jewish. And it was just, I felt so horrible. And I felt like it was my fault and like I had done something wrong or I was a loser. And I didn't tell many people because I was just so ashamed. And I think that people still do that. They're bullied and they feel like, it's a deep dark secret, and rather than saying it's the bully's fault, like why the heck is this person deciding to ruin my day or ruin my education or get in the way of me just living my life? It's their problem. Like what's wrong with this person? Why are they being so mean, relentlessly mean? I think that the person being bullied really takes it in and feels like they've done something. So if this book can encourage people to talk about their experience being bullied, like people of all ages, from children all the way up until adults being bullied now, or our childhood experiences, which we may have kept inside because we're ashamed. I think that that will really shine a light on the fact that bullying is very universal. A lot of us have experienced it. There's no shame in it. Sometimes it feels good just to get it out and
Right.
then figure out ways to move on.
And
So I really want to get people talking about their experience being bullied and also that so many of us have gone through it and that there really is nothing wrong with you because this has happened to you. In fact, I'm sorry it's happened to you. That's terrible, you know?
right, right. To have to notice what is wrong because I noticed that too, that he was talking to her that it's certain things get better, but certain issues are still there in the future, right?
Because they don't get better sometimes with
Right.
bullying. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that I would love to say that teachers or adults in charge or kids can wave a magic wand and make bullying go away. And let the bully have this moment of reckoning. Oh, I've been horrible. I'll
Right.
never do it again. Like that happens sometimes. Sometimes adults can really, anyone involved can help bullying go away. And sometimes it just keeps going. And it's up to the person being bullied to say, I'm going to make other friends. I'm
Right.
going to move on. I'm going to continue to feel good about myself and let this not affect me because I can't get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
So I
and
think that
he
Talia and
points
Mason
out,
sort of, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
he points out that anti-Semitism is still a thing, but
Right,
certain things about it get better, right?
right,
He's like, I can't even imagine being, I can't remember what is said, but he's like, I can't imagine that being an issue now. But then he's like, oh yeah, but then are still these issues.
right. Someone drew a
So,
swastika on a bench. And I think that there's much more like what he says is like people still bully and they still do things like that. They're just a little sneakier about it.
yes, and it changes because like in 1987, it wasn't such a thing to have use the internet and social media for bullying. Like it's a big problem for adults. Like when
Right.
I will be when I moved where I am now a year and a half ago, I was like, what is the matter with this community that they think they can say these things to each other because they are doing it on Facebook? You are going to drop your kids off at school with the other parent. Like I'm just like astounded. But they do, like adults and children, just say things that astound people. And so we need to take it and be like, no, this is not okay. And something needs to be said.
Mhm.
And I love that, yeah, sometimes we need to be the person to stand up. And I love that books like this are out there. I had a powerful, amazing conversation with Christina Wyman where we were talking about, slouch and jawbreaker. And similarly, like with bullying, sometimes it's time to, sometimes, not sometimes, it is time to stand up and say no and empower children and adults to point out when what's being said is wrong.
Well, one thing that's really cool is I've started this initiative. Here's the book cover again. There we go. Tell me if you can see it. There.
In and out. Yes.
So I've started this initiative called the Right Back at You Project, and I'm working with schools in many different geographic regions to read right back at you
Yes.
and talk about it as a school or class or book club. And then the next step is I'm pairing schools from very different geographic regions, and I will meet
Ooh.
them together in a virtual author visit where it's not just me talking about the book. Like I'll answer questions about it, but my real goal is to get the kids from different geographic regions to introduce themselves, to talk about their experience reading right back at you, and then also to discuss ways that they have, as a class, things they've come up with to combat bullying and to encourage empathy in their community and things that they can do as a class, as individuals. And then the last part is that I'm working with the educators to pair the students to write letters to each
I was
other.
really hoping that was going to be included.
Yeah. And similar to Talia and Mason. And so I have two pilot schools, one in Nashville and one on a tiny remote island off the coast of Washington State. And the students are reading right back at you right now. We have an author visit in about a month and a half. We're going to start, be paired based on mutual interests, and then they'll start writing letters. And the goal is, like with Talia and Mason and right back at you, to encourage students to reach across geographic divides
Yes.
and find these commonalities despite their differences, with the goal also of talking about bullying and what they see and what they would like to do and how, just to hear from kids, like what are their ideas rather than adults telling them, let's hear it from them.
Yes. That gets me so excited. When I was at a children's book meeting last summer, I met a librarian and she was asking for ideas. And I pulled her aside afterwards and I said, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but in New York, they have a city that has the same city name as where you live. So you should reach out to the school librarian there
Yes.
and say, can we connect?"
Did she
And
do it?
I don't know because I don't know her. It was
Oh.
just a stranger that I met with, but she liked the idea. And
And
so
where are you based, Karen?
I'm in Utah. And
Utah.
so,
Okay.
and we did that when I was living in Virginia. Actually, we did that through the church that I go to. We found a church that was in the same city name as we lived in Georgia. And so, and it was kind of fun just because that was our commonality, was the
I
city name
love
was the
that.
same in a different state. And I mean, there are so many different, it doesn't have to be city name, but I think that is fun and powerful to make these connections and make little pen pals and then have a book that
And
it's
to look
based
at a
on your
map
city.
and say, oh, there's a
Yes.
kid my age who lives 2 or 3 thousand miles away, who's reading the same book, who's going through things that I'm going through. Even though we have all these differences, like we also have these universal experiences.
Yes. I think that is so powerful. So, Carolyn, then, I would love to hear if you were writing to yourself as a teenager now, what is something you would tell your teenage self?
Sure. I would tell my teenage self, similar to what I was saying before about my experience being bullied, I would tell myself, like, Carolyn, it is not your fault. You are doing nothing wrong. You are amazing and creative and sweet and kind, and don't internalize what they're doing. I wish that I had been a seventh grader like Talia, who continues stamping her foot and saying, this is not okay. And I wasn't like that. I was shy. I was quiet. I felt like just really like I shrunk into myself when I was being bullied. And I would love to tell my 12-year-old self, like it might feel better just to make some noise. And if you can't, like that's okay, but it might feel good to make some noise and just like tell these people that it's their problem, not yours. And then the last thing is I would say it does get better. As much as it feels in this moment, like this is going to be my life forever, that
Yeah.
it gets better and things get happier and you will find acceptance in a lot of places, just maybe not with these kids who are super mean. And who wants that?
Right. No, no. Find what makes you happy.
Exactly.
All right. Well, something that I'd love to know that makes you happy. What is a children's book that you just love?
Oh, goodness. I could go on forever.
Yes.
I name about 50. I would say that one of my favorites when I was growing up was Tuck Everlasting. Um, by Natalie Babbitt. And I loved that book because it really made me feel deep when I read it. It asked really big philosophical questions. And I think that when, as children, we often feel like that adults don't understand that we are also pondering these big life questions. We just haven't had as much experience and as much, as many years on the planet. But I
Right.
felt
Or
like I read
sometimes
a book,
it's harder for a child to put it into words. And so a book
right?
helps them put those thoughts into words.
It's hard for any of us to put these things into words, and books help us put anything into words at any age. And so when I read Tuck Everlasting when I was 10 or 11, I remember thinking, like, yes, like someone respects my brain and respects that I'm thinking about these questions as well, about life and death and mortality and quality of life and youth. And it was just, oh, I see a tail.
Yes, here she is.
Whoa, buddy. Oh my, oh, a golden. Look at that. You're
Hello,
getting there.
Ember. Yes.
What is her name?
Ember, like an ember in the ashes. She was
Oh,
a
and
healing dog for us.
she was what?
A healing dog for us to
And
help us
look
through a
at
hard
her
time.
big head. Hi.
Well, and
Oh,
so about Tuck Everlasting, can you believe I've never read the book? There are some classics that I've never read, but I know the story. And my nephew was in the musical. Did you know it's a musical?
didn't. I feel like I know they made a movie several
Yeah.
years ago.
So they
But
put it into a musical, and it was so funny because none of us knew he could sing. We didn't know that that was his thing. He was into football and all these sports, and now he's discovered that he loves theater. And so it was through this musical. And so yeah, I love so many things that we can do with books
dang, a
across the board.
multifaceted kid.
Yes. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Thank you again for having me.
Thank you for joining. I will include in the description below where they can find you and your socials and everything.
Sounds perfect.
I hope that you enjoyed hearing about Right Back at You. If you enjoy my podcast, Book Huddle, I would love if you would take a minute and rate and review it on your podcast platform. That will help more people find Book Huddle. Now go and have a fantastic week reading some amazing books.